Hey, what's up? Hello everyone, welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl. Today, we get to talk about one of our most anticipated movies for the year, and that is Beau is Afraid, the new film from Ari Aster. There's a lot of different opinions on this movie. Some people call it a masterpiece. Some people call it a career killer. Clearly, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm a pretty big fan. Matt, I'm pretty sure is as well, right?
Not really, honestly.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't dislike Ari Aster. I like Hereditary. Hereditary for me is like a solid 8 out of 10. I don't love it as much as everyone else did, but I thought it was really well done. It's not one that I'd call one of my favorites, not one that I'd go back to, but it was a great time at the movies. Just a solid 8 out of 10, probably ranked like my 50th favorite movie of 2018. Okay. I didn't really understand why everyone was saying Toni Collette for the Oscar. Midsommar, I really loved. That was a 9 out of 10 movie for me. I think Florence Pugh gives one of the greatest horror performances of all time. Take that Oscar talk for Toni Collette, put that on Florence Pugh. That's how I feel about those two. So overall, Ari Aster is someone that I've really liked, but he's never been someone that I've said, that's one of my favorite modern filmmakers. Give this guy all the money in the world. You know, I've had a 10 out of 10 film for Jordan Peele. I've had a 10 out of 10 film for Robert Eggers. I had not, up until this point, had a 10 out of 10 film for Ari Aster. So I guess the question today is, did that change for me? But you really like Ari Aster. You said that both Hereditary and Midsommar are 10 out of 10s for you, right?
I'll go one step further and say that his short film Strange Things About the Johnsons is also one of my favorites of all time. That's the first thing I remember seeing with him, and I didn't know that was Ari Aster at the time, like many people. It was a thing. I can't remember if it was middle school or high school where people were like, oh, have you seen this? You gotta watch this. And you're like, what's it about? Like, no, can't know anything. Just watch it. And then you watch it, and you're like, the fuck am I watching? But this is good. And then Hereditary came out. I was a little late to see Hereditary. I know a lot of people got to see it at Sundance, and it had a kind of like a rollout release, and I was a little late to seeing it. What you brought up about people were like clamoring for Toni Collette, I agree, but I also agree that Florence Pugh in Midsommar is better. And it's really, I think, a testament to how strong 2019 was, because Hereditary is like my number 3 movie of 2018, and Midsommar is like number 6 or 7 of 2019, but I think Midsommar is like a whole step above Hereditary. Just 2019 was just so stacked compared between the two. So coming to this, I think that Ari Aster hasn't really missed.
I was surprised at how little I was anticipating Beau is Afraid.
Me
just
too.
From the photos of it, the weird change from Disappointment Boulevard to Beau is Afraid. This title didn't grab me. The posters didn't grab me. The trailer, I will say, really did grab me. And that was the moment when I went, this might be different. This might be really special. This might be something unlike anything else he's done before. That's when I got on board with this movie.
I was kind of like you as well. I think we even said on this episode when we did our like drafting movies we're anticipated for, it's like, I should be drafting Beau, but I'm not like looking forward to this movie. Like, as you mentioned, the posters weren't really that engaging. I thought the trailer was just okay. I like the song use, and I like a few of the gags with Joaquin Phoenix in the trailer, but overall, just like, I don't really know what's going on, but it's Ari Aster. I'm going to watch it.
With that said, this movie is insane. Ludicrous. I understand the people that are saying this is a career killer, because the entire time I was watching, all I could think was, who the hell gave someone $30 million to make this movie? Who looked at this script and went, yes, $30 million to you to make this movie? I have rarely seen a movie that hates its audience more than Beau is Afraid. I think the last time I felt this way, I recently watched the movie Freddy Got Fingered, which was a movie, it's a comedy by Tom Green, which was made in 2001. It won, I think it swept the Razzie Awards, and it is widely known as one of the worst movies of all time. And watching that movie, it feels like performance art. It doesn't feel like they were trying to make a good movie and failed. It feels like they hated the people that gave them money, and they said, you know what we're gonna do? We're going to light this money on fire and then show everyone in the audience the burning remains of all of this money. And that's what Beau is Afraid feels like. And that's why I loved it. I loved how much I was enjoying it and feeling how much every person around me was fucking hating it. Just gave me so much life.
You could go back to the title change. Disappointment Boulevard is what many people probably felt walking out of this movie, and I kind of fall in that camp as well. I kind of, a lot of people have floated around the idea this movie has 3 acts. I would say it has 2 halves, and I'm really on board for one of the halves, and the other half was just major, like what you're saying, like fuck you, don't watch me, go away. But I was still glued and I was still interested. I just wasn't, like, I was struggling to find reasons to care. Because I'm the more negative one, I probably should just dive into this right away. And I would say the biggest issue I have with this is one, the length. I have no issue with long movies. I mean, you look at our top 10 movies of last year, 3 of my top 4 movies are almost 3 hours or more. My thing with long movies, though, is you need to, like, retain me. You want to make me come back. You should have stuff that this movie is like begging for audience members to want to come back and watch it, but also I don't feel like it really deserves or warrants that. It's like saying, oh, come back, you'll see this in the background, you'll see that, or you'll learn more. But it's like intentionally trying to be vague, and that's not always a good thing. I am going to go see this movie again. I really want to, but before I had saw this, I was like, yeah, I'll see this Thursday opening night first showing. I'll go back Monday. 2 viewings, pretty quick. It's like what I did with Nope. It's what I did with Avatar. Some movies that I love from last year. And now I'm kind of like, I can wait on viewing number 2. It doesn't have to be right away.
Fair enough. I never felt this drag at all. The entire time I was on board. One small criticism, it's the only criticism I think I have of this movie. Sometimes I felt it get repetitive, where it would feel like Beau wakes up, does a few things, runs, hits something, is knocked out. Beau wakes up, does a few things, runs, hits something, is knocked out. And that just happened over and over and over. I'm on the complete opposite side to you. To me, warranted every minute of its runtime. I cannot wait to revisit this. I think I'm actually going to go again on Tuesday, because I know it's a very rare thing that a movie this weird not only gets a wide theatrical release, but gets an IMAX release. And I saw it in IMAX at first, and I was just blown away. And I know that if I wait another week, it's not going to be in IMAX ever again. There's not a chance I'm ever going to be able to see it in that format again. So I need to go again this week. Every moment of this, every single second was the mark of someone who is an unstable genius, just putting everything onto the screen. It's insane that they let some of these things get to the screen. Because any studio executive, anyone who looked at this script would go, you might be going a little bit far there, Ari. Are you sure you can we tone this down a little bit? Can we tone this down? And I'm so happy that they never toned any of that down. I said earlier that Hereditary and Midsommar I thought were very good. Hereditary, 8 out of 10. Midsommar, 9 out of 10. This is a strong 10 out of 10 for me. This is one that I know I'm going to go back to over and over. It's a nightmare that I just loved. I never found it scary at all, but I just had such a blast. I was cackling with laughter, and it's so creative.
I don't think this movie was supposed to be scary. I think this is definitely just a straight dark comedy. I remember from the days when he said, oh yeah, my next movie's going to be a musical. And I was like, oh yeah, Ari Aster musical with Joaquin Phoenix, I'm down. Clearly, that's not what ended up happening. And I'm happy this movie exists, too. We can go back to recent examples of, like, Bardo, like Babylon, where directors given free creative control, lots of money, do whatever you want. I'm happy these movies exist. Do they always work? No, but I'm not going to say, like, oh, I wish they would tone it down, because, like you mentioned, we're never going to see something like this again in this format, getting as big of a release, getting as much money thrown into it, because this is probably going to be a one-time only thing for Aster. I could see money not coming back his way for the next few films. They have to be scaled down a little bit. Maybe he eventually gets to the point of getting a bigger budget, but it's going to have to wait a little bit. But I saw this movie with my mom, you know? It's very fitting to see this movie with your mom. And that's where we're going to start off with some of our spoiler talk, I think. I mentioned before there's a tonal two halves for me. First half is the more comedic half to me, at least, where you have Beau in his apartment, his anxiety on a 100, everything that could go wrong goes wrong. Then he goes out and meets this interesting family to say the least, but I just love every actor among the four that make up that family, whether it's Amy Ryan or Nathan Lane, like clearly just having the time of their lives playing those roles. Like they don't give a shit. They're just there to have fun, and you can see that, and it really works, especially Nathan Lane. I just love the way that he says, "My brother." He's just hilarious. And then we have Kylie Rogers as Tony, who's playing the crazy teenager. And if you're out there writing your crazy teenagers, and I'm looking at you, Darren Aronofsky, take notes here. This is how you write one. The woods is where stuff slows down for me. However, the second half of the movie does have probably the best joke, and that occurs during a bedroom scene that you've been building up to for this whole movie, and you get it. You have that needle drop of Mariah Carey. That scene just really like delivered on like the stuff I wanted from this movie. It's just the rest of the stuff in the second half really didn't. And like, you're building up so much, but your payoff, your conclusion, while it may have been happy to Beau in that moment, isn't very happy to him for the rest of the movie, as well as not being very rewarding for at least me and most of the other audience members, including my mom.
I think this is a film that very clearly is in thirds. The beginning, where we get all of Act 1 at his apartment, then there is the family, and then family and forest, I'd put that together, and then there's the finale, which takes place at Mom's house. What I loved about this is how at first we laugh at Beau, and then as we move through the movie, we start to feel how these things that he's going through relate to our own experiences, our own lives. You start to relate to it more. You start to realize how some of the feelings that he has, you feel too. It unlocked like a fear that I never realized I had, which is like a deep fear that somehow my mom knows everything I'm doing and all the ways I'm disappointing her. I like that in terms of the acts, at first, you know, we see entirely from the perspective of a child who is afraid of disappointing his mother as he realizes he can't get home. Then we see a family where they've lost their son and they're desperately looking for someone to take his place, and their son was not a disappointment. They are so proud of their son, and Beau is wondering, why is my mother not like that for me? Can I make them proud? And also, I'm still disappointing my mother even though she's dead and doesn't have a head. Side note, what is it with Ari Aster and decapitating people? What is it with that? I mean,
this is 3 straight movies.
And then in the forest sequence, we get Beau trying to reckon with his own life. What if he was a father, as well as interacting with someone who is a mother-to-be, right? Interacting with this pregnant woman in the woods, and then imagining himself having children and being the father to them that he wishes he may have had. And then finally him confronting his mother, confronting all of this trauma, and realizing his mother's been lying to him the entire time, and that all of this is a setup. All of that, I think, is a necessary journey. The entire film is about parenthood and about being a child and what it is to be both of those things and what it is to disappoint and be disappointed. I don't know. I think that this movie is, like, brilliant. It's on another wavelength.
I want to join the conversation of talking positive about this movie because I did not hate it. I did not despise it. I had a lot of fun watching this, and I think it's a very good movie. There's some technical aspects, I think, regardless if you are someone who hates this movie, you have to appreciate. The first one being production design, specifically in that sequence in the woods, on another level, as well as I really like the production design work for Beau's apartment at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
You get a really nice feel of the neighborhood, of the whole complex, not just Beau's room. And I felt like if I happened to stumble into that apartment, I would know my way to how to get from the bottom floor to his room. In addition to production design, I also love the cinematography. Aster has always had great cinematography in his movies, and he's worked with the same cinematographer for every one of these. Pavel Porgozowski, he is the same cinematographer who's worked with Aster throughout his whole career. Strange Things About the Johnsons, Hereditary, Midsommar. He's been here from the start, and their cinematography gets better and better with each project, because I thought Hereditary had good cinematography, but it wasn't like the highlight of the movie. Midsommar, it's right there, bold in your face.
In terms of production design, I think you're absolutely right. The work everywhere is stunning. His apartment and the neighborhood that it all takes place in, I think, is spectacular. The way that garbage is strewn about in the streets, his apartment itself, and the way that it changes from before it's ransacked and partied in to afterwards, I think is exceptional. Even just the little things of like how the elevator door grinds open and sparks. The design work is so amazing to put that all together. And then the forest. And this is the most stunning part of the film, even before we get into the animation. This is what that TV show on HBO, Station 11, should have been. This is what it should have felt like. This was magical. It feels like he just stumbles into this beautiful fantasy world. It's like a rest from the craziness of the rest of the movie. Just seeing these actors living in the forest. It's wonderful. And then the highlight of the production design of the movie, the animation sequence, which is done by the team behind one of my favorite animated movies, The Wolf House, La Casa Lobo. In that film, what they do is they animate an entire 90-minute movie on the walls of a house. It's nuts. And those are the guys that did this animation sequence, which equally blew my frickin' mind. Do I fully understand it? No, I don't. But it is gorgeous to look at. The colors are breathtaking. The way that characters are animated and faces are animated, gorgeous. If there was justice in the world, this would be nominated and win production design next year. This is the best production design that I've seen in the last decade.
Bold take right there. And I'll make another bold take right here as well. Joaquin Phoenix is a very popular actor. People love a lot of his performances. I'm someone who likes Joaquin Phoenix, but I don't know if I've ever really loved him in a movie. I love him in this movie. I would probably say this is my second favorite performance from him, after the incredibly controversial one as Joker. So those are probably my top two. And I love when Joaquin Phoenix gets to do more of a kooky side than his more reserved, dramatic take. And when he's these type of characters, like the Joker character, like this character, you get to see a side from him that's not really there very often. He just nails all the mannerisms, the voice too.
Joaquin Phoenix, I got to agree. And I think the thing that makes him just crush this role is that there's something innate about Joaquin Phoenix that's just kind of pathetic. And I don't mean that as an insult to the guy at all. He is one of the best actors of our time. But the thing that he always is able to really harness is his innate uncoolness. He does this thing with his voice that he kind of slurs words together in a way that feels like he's a toddler. It feels like listening to either someone who's drunk or who's a child. And then you feel bad for him. And that's what he does well in Joker. That's what he does well even in The Master, where he's terrifying. That's my favorite Joaquin Phoenix performance. Beau's Afraid, he's just a little mama's boy who is afraid of everything. And he's just sad and pathetic.
In addition to his voice, I love his body humor in this movie as well. And not just humor, just the way he mannerisms himself throughout this. You can do the humor side early on with like the bathroom scene where he's going to take a bath, or later and when he needs to be scared or angry or whatever when he's at his mom's house. You fully believe it every sequence.
And there's another performance that I really love in this, which is Patti LuPone. I heard someone say before I saw the movie, and I have to agree with it after, that Patti LuPone showing up at the very end of this movie ranks alongside like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now or Orson Welles in The Third Man as one of those characters that you hear talked about the entire movie, who just appears at the very last minute and then steals the show. The way that she looks at Beau as well, I'm just like, oh my god. There's like a palpable, not hatred, love and deep, deep disappointment. And it's terrifying to look at because it's every fear that Beau has all put together.
I'm not as head over heels for the performance as it seems like most people are. I think she's good, but I'd probably stop there. I guess that's one thing I want to ask you before we move into, I guess, our final stuff of this movie is how much of this do you think actually happened to Beau, and how much do you think of this is just in his head?
I don't think any of it's in his head. I mean, outside of the sequence, the animated sequence, but even that, I think all of this is a metaphor, right? None of this could reasonably ever happen to a person, right? It's not like Hereditary or Midsummer where you feel the reality of these situations as much as they're ridiculous situations. This, everything's a metaphor. It's all horror as allegory. Everything is just speaking to something else. It's meant to be ridiculous, but within the world of this film, I think all of it is happening. So yeah, it brings up a few plot inconsistencies though. Like, for example, if his mother really was watching and controlling every single thing, then if he loses his keys in the door, wouldn't she know that that happened? Like, obviously, that's just, it's nitpicking, because it's what sets off the story. Overall, I don't think any of it was in his head. I think it's just meant to show that Beau's entire life, he has been controlled, and his mother has literally shaped every environment he's been in. It's like The Truman Show, in my eyes, where it's about someone who has never broken out of their bubble, whose mother has, like, probably every friend they ever had was paid by their mother to teach them a lesson. For example, like the Elaine character, who he met on the boat, was there to teach him a lesson to never, ever be with another woman, because this woman is waiting for him forever. All these people on the street, the ones that chase him, they chase him because they're being paid by his mom to do that. When he goes to the family, they hit him with the car because they were paid to do that. They fix him up because they were paid to do that. They chase him through the woods because they were paid to do that.
You talked about how every person he met along the way could be, like, influenced by his mom. The therapist, I just didn't really get the sense of, like, what his role was at the mom's house there, because, like, when he eventually chokes his mom, he kind of just sits there and just stands. Like, was he supposed to just watch it happen? Was he actually just not there? Okay.
The therapist's role, in my mind, is, I think, the most horrifying thing. And this is the moment where the movie, I think, it didn't get scary for me, but it went, oh God, that's, like, relatable, and now I'm feeling really bad. Having your therapist be a direct line to the person that you're talking about in therapy. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's your mom, your dad, your partner, your best friend. The scariest thing would be your therapist being hired by that person to get all of your dirt and all of the horrible things you're saying about them and reporting it directly to them. That's terrifying. And so when he was choking her, the therapist knows she's not going to die. This is a part of her plan. Get him angry enough, and then he disappoints her again, and then he's going to try to escape, and he's going to go off to this island, and we're going to talk about his crimes against his mother, right? So the therapist wasn't there to stop it, wasn't there to do anything. He's not there to protect her. He's just there because he knows the end of all of this too. Like we saw on the TV, Beau fast forward, he sees himself in the boat, right? He sees the ending of the story because the ending is all predestined, right? The mother has planned every single step of this. She knows that she's going to be strangled. And that's what the ending is that she has led him to this moment where she can finally say everything he's ever done wrong to her. But I love this movie so much. This, I already know just how high it's going to place in my favorites list. This is going to end up in my top 3 of the year, possibly top 2, maybe even top 1. So that's very high for me, and I can't wait to see it again. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. But until next time, my name is Matt.
My name's Dyl. Take your mom to see Beau is Afraid, and this
Don't do that.
is Fantasy Filmball.